Good morning, everyone. Thank everyone for being here. This is it's 9:30, and this is the 29th day of September. And we've called a special meeting for council to get updated on the progress of our Morgan-Windsor Street Alley project. And we just appreciate everybody be here. We've got a special meeting. The agenda is set, so there can be no public comment. There's no we don't unfortunately have, can't deviate from what our meeting is, which is mainly information gathering on progress of the project and anticipated items that need to be done. So I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Mark Watson, to make some comments.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I think that it would probably be beneficial for everybody if I just went down a timeline of this project from the date that it was first discussed by council and through present, and give you some milestones in terms of cost and some other things that were projected in the project. So this project actually was first discussed by City Council in a priority planning retreat in February of 2020. That would have been February the 11th and 12th, if I have my dates correct. When it was discussed that there would need to be, what the project was, and the fact that there would need to be some property acquisition and some construction cost estimates were discussed at that time. I would like to point out that the city owns the building on the corner down here, right in front of where this brown structure is, and that is where the Arts Council has had its home for years and years. And as part of that building, there was a part of that building that actually extended out into what now is this open space all the way to right here, if I'm not mistaken. And so all of that had to come out as part of the demolition of the project. So on February the 21st, 2020, in a City Council special meeting, funding priorities were considered: estimated property acquisition $125,000, an estimated construction cost of $800,000. In February of 2021, so almost 10 months post that estimate, McAdams was engaged to develop conceptual design, surveying, engineering for a pedestrian-friendly space between adjacent businesses on the sections of Morgan and Windsor, and the amount of that contract was $63,000. That contract was executed in March, and then later in October the 12th, in a special City Council strategic planning meeting, McAdams presented to council the plans for the alleyway, along with some projected construction and project timelines. Construction period was to be from December of 2022 to May of 2023, with final completion in May. I think that pretty much, I missed Dan Lambert, who's here with us today, right over here, made that presentation presenting according to the agenda abstract, the final drawings, and provided the results from the public input sessions. And of course there was a whole litany of staff input. The model was developed, the concepts were put together, public input was given prior to this information being delivered to City Council and Strategic Meeting October the 12th. Then from there in October, City Council was asked to take into consideration prohibiting vehicular traffic along Morgan Street, and so that this construction could take place, and they took that action. As a side note, at that same November 2021 meeting, City Council was presented with a request to call for public hearings to request a parking assessment and feasibility study. Apparently the last one had some age on it, and that the cost of that parking assessment and feasibility study was $50,000, and we've just received the preliminary report on that, I believe, last week, and that parking assessment study is scheduled to be presented in the General Services Committee meeting next week, or October the 12th. Is it 12th?
Yeah.
5th. Thank you. Let's see what else here. In April of 2022, the General Services Committee heard the presentation for the award of the contract to J.D. Goodrum, whose representatives are also here, for the construction of this project in the amount of $1,806,000 and some change. That contract was subsequently awarded in City Council regular session at their next meeting, post that committee meeting on April the 12th. Fast forwarding almost a year, April the 6th, General Services Committee received an update on the Morgan-Windsor Alley project. There were some change orders that, due to some construction things that they had experienced related to the amount of underground utilities and stormwater, things of that nature, that was a little more extensive than what it was first thought to be. You can imagine about 150 years worth of things in the ground between the Windsor Street Windsor Street and Morgan. So those change orders were taken into account. It did increase the cost of the project to a total of $1,975,000 and some change. There were a couple of features that were City Council eventually asked to be removed from the project. And one was a water feature that was at the center of the intersection of Morgan and Windsor, and a geode feature was removed for cost-saving purposes to offset some of the costs associated with some of the change orders. And at that particular meeting in April, Mr. Lambert reported the project should be completed in June. Subsequent meetings that have been held here in the alleyway regarding the construction schedule have extended that timeline, and right now I believe, if my information is correct, this project should be complete, or is expected to be complete by October 13th. I see some nodding heads back here, so that's correct. So, Mr. Mayor, that's where we are today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Scott Clark over here, our Water Resources Director. Scott has taken on the role of project manager for this project over the last few weeks. Sometimes when you have a project like this, especially with the amount of infrastructure that was in the ground, the amount of infrastructure that needs to be moved, and the demolition that's occurred, you run into some things that are, of course, unexpected, and I mentioned the change orders that took place. Part of what we are experiencing right now, and you know we had some significant rain events just in the last month, is some water infiltration in some of the adjoining structures here. So that is going to have to be addressed to make sure that this project does not push water into any of the adjacent buildings. Some of these walls are really old, and as you can imagine, you see where the demolitions occurred just against these buildings right here. So I think it's fair to a fair assessment or statement to say, you know, these walls probably haven't seen the weather in many decades. And so when they're exposed to weather after being in the dry for decades, then you're going to have some water you're going to have water issues, okay? So there's some waterproofing that needs to occur along the alleyway from the corner of the city's building all the way down to the corner of the building that is down here at Windsor Street. Some of that waterproofing is caulking along the edge of this concrete. The flashing up here along this edge a lot of that was removed. And we need to go back and restore the flashing along those edges so that that water is not getting into or draining into those walls. As you can see, there are many joints along those walls that are where water can, you know, seep in and penetrate those walls. This particular building right here had some significant water in the basement, up to, I believe, about a foot recently. That had to be mitigated. This firm had some files stored down there and they were lost. So, you know, in being a good neighbor, we need to make sure that that does not happen again and they don't continue to experience those things, and that space that they have, there's actually a basement down here in this area, that space is usable for that business. So that waterproofing could entail putting a waterproof coating along all these walls, which would seal up any of the gaps, any of the missing bricks. It's hard to see from where you're standing, but you know, there's quite a few missing bricks right here in some of these buildings, some along the edge of where Mr. Lambert's standing right there, right behind him, is some missing bricks and things like that. So those types of things need to be filled in. The waterproofing needs to be done on these walls, and that's an expense that you get into a project like this, and you don't anticipate it. You know it might happen, but that cost has not been calculated or estimated at this point. Waterproofing that, though, will resolve these issues that are being experienced by these businesses down through here. Mr. Clark has quite a bit of experience with waterproofing, his work in water resources, where they go in and they have to waterproof the insides of manholes and things like that. And there's some materials that, other than just painting these walls, that would not keep the water out. Just a coat of paint on them would not keep the water out, but there's a material that we can put on those walls and ensure that they're waterproof, and that material is paintable. So if there were murals or things that wanted to be added to these walls after the fact, that could be done, and it actually provides a better surface for things like that to happen. So that's one of the major things that we're facing right now is the water intrusion. We still have some unresolved issues up in Morgan. There are some, and I would encourage you not to walk too close behind the Monroe Hardware building, but if you go and look, there are about 4 different places where that building is losing brick off the side of the building. Not related to the construction, but that is just water has, the way water has drained over the side of that building and eroded the mortar mix between the brick joints. Over time, some of that brick is wanting to release from that. So we're working with the owner of that building to get that secured so that there are no potential incidences that would occur. Getting hit in the head with a brick, falling about 30 feet, it would not feel too good. So we've got to resolve that. As these things go, we have some modifications that need to be made to the archway down here off of Haines Street. The distance between the poles is less than 13 feet, and with some stone add-ons that go around the base, it reduces the width between the poles to less than the distance that a fire truck can get between them. Fire code actually calls for the poles to be 20 feet apart, so there's some modifications that are going to happen down there to make sure that it meets fire code. The other is 19 feet 10 inches, I believe, or something like that. I guess we really need to take a tape measure and put a final number on that, but we're working with that also. Mr. Mayor, is there anything else that you or other council members would like to know or have information on at this time?
Well,
there is one more thing. So Lisa Hollowell, who many of you have not met Lisa joined my staff 3 weeks ago. Lisa has spent the last 23 years working for the General Assembly in Raleigh as a policy and budget analyst, and helping the General Assembly put together all of their budgets and then follow up on all those projects that they have funded to make sure that those tax dollars are being spent the way they're supposed to be spent. But I've asked Lisa to take a look at the amount that has actually been expended on this project to date. And you have a number for us right now?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and members and the public, to date, there's approximately $1.8 million that's been spent, and that's a combination of what's been paid to the contractors, what's been spent out of water resources, and also an infrastructure grant that was received from the state of $250,000. So that's a total of approximately $1.8 million.
So 1.8 million out of a total cost of about 1.9. So you can tell we're getting really close to the end of this project in terms of cost. There's some other odds and ends that are going to have to be addressed as part of the final construction piece, but they're, I've mentioned all the notable things up to this point.
thank you, Mark. Anytime you're working on a project in today's environment, it's most unusual for one to be completed on time. And as he referred to earlier, you're digging into ground. Like we made a joke this morning that we didn't find a body down here, but you're digging it in, you're finding foundations from buildings that were built back in the 1800s. So it was a work in progress and continues to be. But I thank each and every one of y'all for coming out today. please remember, this is a live construction site. As we leave, the workers know you're here, but be very cautious. You can get hurt pretty easy here. So
Make sure that everyone leaves.
Encourage everybody to
Good
move
idea.
as way as possible.
That would be the best way to exit. I'm getting ready to recess our meeting, and the reason for that, just for general information, our state law requires us to either begin or end the meeting at City Hall. So we started here, so we're going to go back to City Hall, reconvene, and then we'll be following the window sills. We could have started there and then ended it here, but we felt like this was probably the best way to do it. But I thank each and every one of you for your interest. Have a little patience. I know a lot of y'all, it's been affecting you, but once this is completed, it'll really be a crown in the jewel in the crown that we're wearing here. So thank you very much. So I will officially recess this meeting until 10:15. Okay, I was thinking it was 10:20. It's 10:15. So it is 10:16. We'll reconvene our regular city council meeting of, special meeting of September 29th, 2023. And I'll open the floor now for discussion. Please remember, if you're speaking, to hit the little button on your microphone where it'll turn green. And when you're finished, hit it again and off. So any comments or thoughts? I want to thank everybody for helping line up the tour this morning. It's been difficult to get everyone together. James, any comments?
Good morning. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank staff for all their time they've put into making this meeting happen, and of course everyone on council for being here. As it was stated in the alley this morning, this is a novel project, and novel projects are going to have unforeseen issues. And I'm very grateful for Mark Watson and for Scott Clark for picking this up and moving it towards completion so that it will be something we can all be proud of. There are a lot of issues, a lot of layers to the onion, as they say, but I'm confident in their abilities to get everything to where it needs to be, so it will be an asset for property owners, business owners, and for citizens alike. Thank you.
I think it's extremely important that certain areas where we've had certain things doesn't need to be there. This needs to be a facility that moves traffic in a safe manner in downtown, make it a safe shopping area, and also where people can actually go and sit and eat, read the paper. I've noticed that we've got swings and we've had other things that I don't see what it adds. You really and truly want this to be an adult area, and I think that's extremely important. Right now, we're catering too much. We've got swings in there. Well, I don't know what that would accomplish. If a parent goes in there with their child, they're more than likely going to go in there to either sit and eat or make a shortcut, which makes it much safer in downtown area. Don't have to cross as many streets. So I think that's something that's pretty important that we need to look at.
Okay, so I'm gonna just go ahead and make the motion to give Mark Watson the authority to handle any upcoming adjustments to the Windsor Alley project, and then ask for monthly updates to go through the General Services Committee.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Okay. All in favor of that motion, if you'd signify by raising your right hand, please. Okay, motion carries.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Wow, okay. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand, please. All right, thank you very much, folks. Appreciate everybody being here.